It's Seeing Red, the New York Soccer Roundup. Since 2010, your weekly source for independent New York Red Bulls news and opinion. Now, from the Joe Goldstein Studio, here's your host, Mark Fishkin.
Hey, it's Mark Fishkin here with Daniel Rebain. The Red Bulls go out on opening night at home, take down Nashville SC with 2 goals in the first half hour. It's a happy show. Before we get into it, though, we want you to like. We want you to do the subscribing. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. We really, really appreciate it. Tonight, inside Seeing Red, we'll go back to Saturday night's chilly home opener at Red Bull Arena. Wow. We'll talk about the game, of course. We'll give our Bull of the Week. We'll give our thoughts on the debut of Sports Illustrated Stadium and changes that have been made since we last were there. We'll have a preview of the Red Bulls' visit to Atlanta United this Saturday. It's a little early for a kind of a rivalry match, important match. We're going to chat with Jason Longshore of Soccer Down Here, who is literally the authority on all things Atlanta United. And then we have some fantastic emails. Daniel Rebain is a sad Devils fan today, but nevertheless, he is a happy Red Bulls fan. Dan, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, as you said, going through it. Recent news of Jack Hughes out for the season. Well, we'll see what happens. But let's talk some Red Bull because there's some positivity going around after last game.
Absolutely. The Red Bulls take care of business at home, scoring early and often in a 2-0 victory. A late knock in training to Lewis Morgan gives Mohamed Sofo, the Ghanaian, his first ever MLS start. 7 minutes in, Chupo, with as hard and as close an opportunity as we've seen from him in 2 games, off the post. Sofo is right there to clean up. His first MLS start, his first MLS goal from Mohamed Sofo. And the great thing that I saw, not only was the kid absolutely over the moon, but the team was so excited for him, Dan.
Yeah, and I didn't tweet this out. I wish I did, but I was telling multiple media members when we saw Sofo get into the lineup, I was like, yeah, he's scoring tonight. And what 7 minutes in, he scored, and I'm going looking around the press box like, hey, what's up? But yeah, you said it. I mean, he was fantastic in his first start. I mean, the positioning was great. His speed, his pressing was there. And it was something that they were missing in that first game against Cincinnati, that just pace that he brings to the game. And Chupo hits the post, but who's there to clean it up? Mohamed Sofo. And his dance was excellent. I hope we see that more this year. But, promising start for a kid that's, only been in the United States for 2.5 years.
Brings to mind Ben Mines from back in the day, right? A number of Red Bulls scoring. Julian Hall, even when he got on the field for the first time. It's a next man up state of mind with the Red Bulls. Sofo had played with the first, trained with the first team over the last couple of years. Was really excited to see him get his first team contract, and that's exactly the situation where you want young players coming in the lineup. Maybe a little bit of surprise, but the moment wasn't too big for him. I mean, keep in mind, he will score more challenging goals in MLS than what we saw on Saturday night. But we've seen plenty of forwards with this team over the last 5 or 6 years take an opportunity like that and not convert it. It was a total poacher's goal, a tap in, but he did it. He met the moment, and great for him. And then to continue on the young Red Bull bandwagon, Omar Valencia getting his second straight start, a half hour in, chases down a ball that I don't know if I thought was going to be staying in as the ball went from right to left across the attack, flips it over to Forsberg with, I think we've heard Forsberg say this is his best goal in a Red Bulls uniform so far.
Yeah, I think from my vantage point, I saw it go straight into the side corner, and I was like, wow. I mean, he tried that same exact shot multiple times last year, and it would either hit the crossbar,
yes,
go just over the bar, but this time it was perfectly placed in that corner. And you bring up Omar Valencia, him and Mohamed Sofo. I think it just, you got to give praise to Ibrahim Sagaya at Red Bull too, kind of bringing these guys through the team and getting them ready for when their chance comes for them. And 2 for 2 so far with former Red Bull 2 players from last year, making an impact early this season.
Absolutely. And for all of the talk about the experience brought into the team in the offseason with players like Chupo and Alexander Hack, I mean, it's the kids that are making the most of their opportunities. At 2-0 up against a team like Nashville, we look to ourselves and we're like, I think this game's over. I mean, so much of what happened over the last hour of the game was New York kind of frustrating Nashville. Certainly in the second half, the Red Bulls kind of giving the ball to Nashville and seeing what they could do. The one tough moment of the match, of course, is Cam Harper getting jacked up in the defensive end with a knee injury, and he needs to be carried, helped off the pitch. The interesting thing for me, Dan, was Dennis Yengar is told, warm up, get your jersey on. It's right at the cusp of injury time. And then Schwartz says, wait, we're just going to kind of see what happens. I think New York was defending a corner kick at that moment, but it seemed really interesting to me that he didn't rush to put Yengar on. And then for the second half, it's Dylan Nealis that comes out when you're up 2-0 with 45 to play. And I guess Schwartz is thinking, I'm just going to play some defense and make Nashville break me down. What do you think that says about, is it simply game states at that point? Or is it Yengar's, maybe his the opinion of him right now is not super high?
I think it just, that point in the game, they're up 2-0. They're controlling the game. It's, what do you need Gengar for? That probably is the mindset. You bring on a guy like Dylan Nealis to kind of lock it down for the second half. I mean, like you said, after that second goal, it just felt like the game was over from there.
Yeah.
Dylan Nealis is a much more experienced defender, and he can go forward from time to time. So I think maybe if that game is 1-0, definitely tied, I think you'd see Dennis Gengar come on in that spot because he's more of a attacking wingback in that 3 at the back formation. I think it's just, game script, hold on to the lead, defend the best you can, and just get out of there with the win. And they did that. They held on to the clean sheet. Dylan Nealis played, great defensively.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything too much to look at here, unless this is like a constant thing that Dylan Nealis has picked over him to start games going forward. If Cameron Harper's out long term, then maybe you worry a bit. But
it'll be interesting to see on the turf at Atlanta what Schwartz needs to feel the need to do at that right wing spot.
Yeah.
Because there's so much speed, as we'll hear from Jason Longshore, so much speed on the Atlanta side. And maybe you're thinking defense first going in that game. We'll have a chance to talk to Schwartz tomorrow during the conference call. Nevertheless, Coronel makes 2 saves. Nashville has never beaten the New York Red Bulls, and I got in trouble in some rooms for actually pointing that out, that Nashville hadn't beat the Red Bulls before the game. Nashville has never beaten the New York Red Bulls. New York 3-0-4 all time against a team from Tennessee. Nashville also hasn't scored against New York in almost 500 minutes. Our old friend Alex Muyl starts for Nashville. He goes 73 minutes. He had 1 header, soft target. And then when this sub was made, I think it was like the 75th minute or so, I'm like, is Teal Bunbury still in this league?
Yeah.
Teal Bunbury has scored 7,000 goals against New York, no matter what shirt he's wearing. But if you're BJ Callahan and you're looking down your bench and you're bringing Teal Bunbury on with 15 minutes to play, he's 35, by the way. He's not Methuselah, but it's like, yikes.
Yeah, I mean, good old 2025 Teal Bunbury still coming back to play the Red Bulls. I mean, I think they were dealing with a couple of injuries, so that's probably why. But yeah, even if you looked at Red Bulls bench that game,
yes,
I mean,
sure.
You're probably doing the same thing. You're like, oh man, some of these options aren't the best with all the injuries. But yeah, thank God they held on. Clean sheet. Just get out of there with a clean sheet. But But yeah, when you see Teal Bunbury come on, it gives you PTSD from his days in New England.
Absolutely. And glad that game wasn't the Open Cup in Montclair either.
Yeah.
So a 2-0 clinical win, clean sheet, first ever goal, fantastic goal by Forsberg. The fans who attended were definitely treated. It was brutally cold and the temperatures just sunk as the night went on. But nevertheless, bull of the match. Who do you have on your sheet for player of the game honors for New York?
Player of the game for me, I think it's pretty simple. I think it was Mohamed Sofo. I mean, obviously, pressure is all on him to come into this lineup and make an impact with Lewis Morgan, rolled out that night, even though, there was rumors that he'd be missing a game. But, to go into that position on the right wing or, second striker next to Choupo-Moting and then contribute the way he did, not just the goal, but doing all the little things right. Making runs. Like, he was a pest for that back line the whole game. Like, he was causing major problems for Walker Zimmerman. I mean, talk about a defender that looked out of place in that game. It was Walker Zimmerman, and Mohamed Sofo was making it hell for him all night. So he's my bull of the week. He got that goal, and he did everything right to contribute to a win.
All right. When you make the MLS Team of the Week, you get named Bull of the Match on Seeing Red. And for me, Emil Forsberg's not just his moment of absolute classic quality with that curler goal past Joe Willis, and how great to score on Joe Willis all the time.
Yeah.
We still have PTSD from 2012. But yeah, I mean, Forsberg bossing the match. Had New York in control until it was out of reach for Nashville. And this is exactly what you want out of your main man, creating, passing, doing it on his own. Too many goals last year for Forsberg came via the penalty spot. Yep. We need to see more of these. So Sofo and Forsberg, well done, our Bulls of the week. Okay. First match ever for the CIS or the PSI or the SI, or we used to call it RBA, new press box for you, sir. What was that experience like?
I missed the old press box because, man, that was a lot of walking. You have to walk from all the way underneath the stadium now to from the new media area, which is next to Gate D.
Okay.
And you got to go up 3 flights of stairs all the way to the nosebleeds. But I'll say this, the seats themselves aren't bad. Like, you can see all the action, and that was fine. It's just, man, I knew I was out of shape when I got to the last step. And I'm just like, man, my hamstrings are tight. Like, I felt like I was walking up my friend's stairs at his apartment in the city. I mean, it was
fifth floor walk up.
Fifth floor walk exactly. Up. But I think they'll be fine. I just, I wish we were still behind the bench because that was such a great vantage point to see what certain things were going on from the bench, what Sandro Schwartz was saying and all that. But, it's not the biggest of downgrades.
Fair enough. Those seats weren't heated up there, were they?
Oh, no. Yeah, we were still freezing. So
okay. Yeah. Powered though, yes?
I had power. Some other people, it was first game, so they have some kinks to work out. But me and James were fine in our corner. We had our power working, so nothing went out on us.
I thought, for fans using this new kind of virtual security technology, walking through made things go much faster. I thought that was good. It's just interesting, the notion that here at Sports Illustrated Tickets, that is the main sponsor of this arena, and yet we are getting these still images of SI soccer covers all around the concourse, which, I guess that's fine. The irony, of course, is that there is no Sports Illustrated magazine anymore, and that's, I think, a little bit of a disconnect. But hey, $100 million over 13 years.
Yeah,
you get to do what you want. I'm curious what you thought of the team's decision to retroactively recognize the 2008 Western Conference title and then the 2024 Eastern Conference title. For me, I mean, listen, this is not an indoor team, right? So it's not as if there are division banners and basketball or hockey where you do anything right, you're going to get a banner hung. I'm just kind of curious. I'll give my thoughts. So what did you think about the team's decision to do that?
Yeah, I noticed that when I sat down for the first time at the press seats, I was like, oh, that's a new addition. And you know what? I think that's a good addition because it kind of, lets younger fans know that, yeah, we haven't won an MLS Cup yet, but, winning a conference title is very hard to do. Obviously, that was just our second one that we won last year. So to put them up with the supporter shields, I'm okay with it. I think it just shows a bit more history for certain fans that might not know that we did play in the Western Conference that one year. So
yeah, I mean, it was a little funny for me. Like you won the semifinals, and maybe I don't know. I mean, you are correct. There was a trophy. Our background here on Seeing Red is the team lifting the Eastern Conference trophy from 2024, at least for this season of Seeing Red. I don't know. It just interesting to me. I wouldn't like if we're gonna do that. Like I wouldn't mind showing perhaps like CCL participation in another place, like because that's an honor of making the Champions League. Obviously, New York hasn't won it, but yeah, I'm of two minds of it. I was kind of like, are we really celebrating? I guess the larger issue is, are we really celebrating losing an MLS Cup, right? Which is kind of what it is. And yes, it was a magic run through the playoffs, and I think lifted the Red Bull fandom in through what was kind of a blasé kind of mediocre regular season for reasons. But I don't know. After all this time, to when they actually put the MLS Cup up on the wall at some point in the future, I think that that's going to mean a whole lot more, obviously, than a conference title.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna acknowledge last year's performance, you obviously have to acknowledge 2008.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of indifferent to it. It's kind of cool just to see. I mean, like they obviously, like you said, don't have the MLS Cup, so they can't put that up. But making it to a final, winning your own conference is
a big deal.
Is an achievement in its own right. Yeah. Obviously, you'd like to win MLS Cup, but only one team gets to win those every year. So a trophy is a trophy at the end of the day. Maybe it means less to certain people, but some people might value that trophy.
Fair enough. This Saturday night, the Red Bulls go to Mercedes-Benz Stadium to take on Atlanta United, and we're going to get in to that preview right now. Atlanta is 1-1 on the season. They have a 3-2 opening day win at home against Montreal, and then a 2-0 loss at Charlotte last week. So they're 1-1 for 3 points. They're sixth in the East. They're level on points with the Red Bulls. They're 2 places below Red Bulls on goal difference. They've scored 3 and conceded 4 in 2 matches. Again, they won their only home game. Every goal the Atlanta has conceded thus far has been in the second half. Something to keep in mind. Last year, 10-4-10 for 40 points. They were the last team in the playoffs. They got past Miami in the first round of the playoffs over 3 games, which I think most Red Bull fans celebrated, most MLS fans celebrated. Miami going home early. They scored 46, allowed 49 in 34 games. Not a great season for Atlanta. At home, they were only 6-7-4 at Mercedes-Benz. And that is not like an Atlanta team that we've seen. They've kind of been in the wilderness for a couple of years now since their 2018 MLS Cup. Third in MLS last year in long balls per match, 4th in crosses per match, 4th in touches in the opposition box. Only the Galaxy, LAFC, and NYC had more. And they've really changed up their attack, and I'll get into that in a minute. 3rd in the league in XG conceded, meaning that they were 3rd worst in MLS. They and they still have Brad Guzan, who's 40, almost 41,
with no knees.
My favorite Brad Guzan moment is when we scored on him and he fell back into the goal as if he had just been knocked down by a strong wind. That was tremendous from the Worm. Okay, big changes for Atlanta. Ronnie Dyla is the coach now, former NYCFC, won their only cup after Philadelphia got COVID and they won 2 penalty kick shootouts. The luckiest playoff team in MLS history, NYCFC 2021. Nevertheless, Uncle Arthur Blank has a lot of cash. They spent $22 million to bring in Emmanuel Latte Lath, the 26-year-old striker from Cote d'Ivoire, from Middlesbrough in the championship. And as we will learn from Jason Longshore, he is blindingly fast. They also brought back Miguel Almiron after a number of years in Newcastle. They only paid $14 million to get the Paraguayan back from the English Premier League. That's $37 million on 2 players. That's how badly Arthur Blank wants to win. The other players on this list of any note is Matthias Kilsch, who signed from DC United for nearly $1 million. Out Franco Ibarra, out Nick Firmino, Tyler Wolff, Josh Wolff's son went to RSL for a ham sandwich, and Santi Sosa, he was sold to Racing in Argentina for $4 million. New look attack after the departures of both Thiago Almada and Georgios Giacomakis, who was very good for them. It was evident Atlanta needed to bolster the front line despite their postseason success under interim head coach Rob Valentino, who did get them over the playoff line late. Gifted Russian attacking midfielder Alexei Miranchuk came in the summer, and in the winter, Almiron joined the club along with Emmanuel Latte Lath, giving Atlanta one of the scariest attacks in MLS. A front 4 of Lath, Lobjandize, Miranchuk, and Almiron is enough to cause headaches for any MLS team, and indeed expected to do just that. New head coach, old ideas. For a while, Atlanta United had the reputation of being a ball-playing side, and was warranted, and they played some of the best soccer in MLS. However, toward the end of Pineda's tenure, they became a lot more toothless and a lot less entertaining, especially after Almada and Giacomakis left the club. Pineda's out. Atlanta's brought in Ronnie Dela, who's played some, he had some great soccer during his time in NYCFC, and a little doubt in most of the minds that with Atlanta's attack being stacked, the winning style will follow him. Defensive injuries, it's a new era in Atlanta, but one thing that's remained an issue for the Five Stripes is the back line. They've conceded 4 goals in 2 matches against Montreal and Charlotte, and it's no surprise why. While their center backs have been fit and healthy, the fullbacks have not, with Ronald Hernandez, Pedro Amador, and Brooks Lennon all out with injuries currently, although Lennon, I believe, and Amador are training. Homegrown Matthew Edwards has started both of Atlanta's opening games, and center back Louis Abram had to deputize his left back during Charlotte on Saturday. Again, the goals so far this year, Lath had a brace. First game against Montreal, Mascara had an 85th minute goal. They conceded twice to Montreal in the second half, and then last week, no goals for this vaunted offense in Charlotte on the fake pitch. More fake pitch for them. All right, it's the 19th all-time meeting between Atlanta and Red Bulls, and in fact, today is the 8th anniversary of Atlanta's first ever game at Bobby Dodd Stadium when the Red Bulls went down and Danny Royer got a late goal and New York spoiled the party 2-1, and it was glorious. New York still leads this all-time series 10-3-5. Yes, Atlanta's only beaten New York 3 times in 18 games. At Atlanta, New York has a stellar record with 5 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses. But consider that New York hasn't won in Atlanta in 2 years. The last time these teams met, it was in October last year. Atlanta scored twice. Miranchuk had a penalty kick in the 75th, and it was a Wolf 97th minute goal that iced the game. Serge Goma came on and scored in the 114th minute to give New York hope in a ridiculous match. Again, right, the Red Bulls have lost their last 2 games at Mercedes-Benz after never losing in a regular season game. The home side is unbeaten in 4 in the series. Danny Royer with 4 goals, and Tim Parker, Lewis Morgan, and Serge Goma each have 2. Those are the active leaders on the team. Here is what the lineup could be. Again, the Worm, Brad Guzan, 40 years old. He's already conceded 4 times in 2 games. Left back Lewis Abram, again, is a converted center back, the 29-year-old Peruvian. Derek Williams from Ireland. Stan Gregerson from Norway. And then Matthew Edwards, a 22-year-old American on the right. The 6s are Mateusz Kilsch and Bartosz Szylsz. The 2 Poles kind of try to hold it down in the central defensive midfield, and then everyone in these top 4 is a scoring threat. I'm going to do better with the Georgian Saba Lobanjize, Alexei Moranchuk. Hope that was better. Moranchuk had 3 goals and 4 assists last year. The Russian is the number 10. The actual player who wears number 10 is Miguel Almiron, and he lines up on the right here. He had played 14 games for Newcastle last year. He didn't score. And then Latte Lath, the Cote d'Ivoirian, up top. Again, Ronald Hernandez, Brooks Lennon, Pedro Almador, they are the ones who are injured and remains to see if they will play. And so, my friend, sir, the Red Bulls are, I think, have to feel really happy about what they did against Nashville. But Atlanta is not Nashville. They are a very, very talented attacking squad, and it is going to be a very tough order, especially without Lewis Morgan, and perhaps if Morgan doesn't play and if Harper doesn't play.
Yeah, I mean, you brought it up. $37 million to sign 2 players. I mean, that's a wet dream for Red Bull fans. I mean, like, just to have an owner that has ambition to spend that money, like, people might say that might be an overpay for Latte Lath, $22 million for a championship striker. But if you're willing to spend the money and he performs, who cares how much he costs? So, that's going to be a very difficult attack to defend. You already said Lath scored a brace this season. We played Hani Mukhtar and Surridge last week, but this is an upgrade on those 2 guys, and we know how good those guys for Nashville usually are. So, this defense is going to have a tough time with it on the fake grass, as you said. Question is do you go 3 at the back, or do you go with a normal traditional 4 at the back with the pace that this team brings?
Yeah. If I'm Schwartz, I think you probably stay with 5 in the back and you pull both Edelman and Stroud, assuming that Carvalho is not ready to go. And I don't, based on what we've heard from Schwartz, I don't think he's going to be ready to go. Maybe we get a half out of him this week, but he seemed to indicate it would probably be 3 or 4 weeks before he's ready to come back and start. And New York doesn't really do this a lot, but you just pack it. And, what you'll hear from Jason Longshore is that the goals that Atlanta has given up this year, one was on a corner. You'll hear it later, but basically going Route 1 against kind of a weak wing backs that are playing out of position may be the way to go. You can't get caught flat-footed. Miggy can still run at 31. And Latte Lath is in blinding form. And so I think you sit deep. I mean, it's not how we play, but I think if New York wants to get out of here, they don't have a Wilfred Zaha that's going to be, up at the top of the formation unless Chupo turns into Superman. And, I think, I've been happy what I've seen from Chupo. I'm not expecting a goal a game. Again, great shot off the post last week against Nashville, but it'll be really interesting to see what kind of lineup Schwartz throws and how he plays. This might be a place where you just pop it forward and hope that someone can run onto it. Maybe it's a day for Serge Goma, or maybe it's a day that you let Sofo run, and maybe you save Chupo on this turf, and maybe you just save him till the 60th minute and see what he can do and mix it up. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think this is a game, like we brought up, Harper is probably not going to play unless
I don't think so.
Magically not have crutches anymore. But I think this game set up for Dennis Gangar to play on that right wing back, because obviously we've seen what Omar Valencia has done at the left wing back, and he's going to have a good day or a tough time playing against Almiron. But Gangar brings that pace, especially if you're looking to counterattack. I think their last game against Charlotte, when Zaha scored, that was a clean cut counterattack. So if you're, sitting back and you win possession and you can, have one of the faster guys in the league and Dennis Gengar just running up the right side, why not? I think that's probably the way you go. Like you said, sit back and counterattack. Just hope something comes from it, especially with Mohamed Sofa probably getting a second straight start.
For sure. All right, prediction time. We don't have to do the whole league, but we do have to do this game. New York goes down to Atlanta 8 years after their first ever game and win. What do you see happening Saturday night in Mercedes-Benz Stadium?
Well, if they are going to sit back, they're going to try to make this a snooze fest. That's probably the best way they can get out with points, and that's what you got to do early in the season on the road. Get as many points as possible. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. I think Forsberg scores again, and I think Latte Lath, gets one through the air as well for Atlanta.
Yeah, I think Atlanta fans are really hyped up for this. This is a meaningful series for Atlanta, and Atlanta fans from the early days of their existence understand that these are two teams that do it a slightly different way, but both are quality. Again, New York making the MLS Cup last year, I'm sure, is bringing big envy out of the Atlanta fans, and so. Yeah, I think it's going to be a big and loud crowd. It'll certainly be more people than Omar Valencia has ever played in front of. Thinking back to his Montclair State nights during the summer, and Sofo as well, toiling for Red Bulls too. This is the big time. Both of them have done okay, Sofo in particular, but this is a different story. I think maybe a 2-1 Atlanta win. Again, I don't think it's. I think it's a learning step for New York. I don't think, again, losing 1-0 in Cincinnati, given the quality in their squad, not a big deal. Although New York perhaps deserved 1 point. I don't know if they get it, but nevertheless, I think it's a 2-1 Red Bulls loss. When we're back on Seeing Red, we're going to talk to Jason Longshore of Soccer Down Here. Keep it here, please. Thank you. On Seeing Red, the New York Soccer Roundup. It is 8 years to the day from the first ever Atlanta United match, which was, fans of the show will recall, was against the New York Red Bulls. New York was able to take down Atlanta 2-1 on that night at Bobby Dodd Stadium. A historic night for soccer in the South, historic night for tonight's guest. Jason Longshore has been synonymous with Atlanta soccer as long as I can remember, and Jason and I have known each other a very long time. He is the radio color voice of Atlanta United matches and the originator and host of Soccer Down Here, which provides local Atlanta fans with everything they need to know about Atlanta United and Atlanta area soccer. And I'm very pleased to be speaking with him once again, my old friend Jason Longshore. How are you tonight, sir?
Doing well. I had that pop up on my memories today. I'd actually forgotten that it's that far back, which feels like yesterday, but still feels like a long time ago somehow at the same time.
Yeah.
What a night to look back at, where I'll always remember the first game I called at that level. I'd called one game before that in my life. And it was just, I was so nervous, like walking into the building, figuring out what to do, how to do it, how I wanted to sound. I will always remember turning a corner on Georgia Tech's campus and seeing so many red and black jerseys.
Yep.
For a team that had never played an official game before, to see that many people in the gear already, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
And it's just so crazy that we're here now, and there's a ton of excitement for the game coming up this weekend between the same two teams.
Yeah, I think there's these teams have kind of a special relationship in a lot of ways, and I think there was a time that New York had what Atlanta wanted. I think maybe there's a time that Atlanta wanted what New York had. They were great rivals that played in different styles at the height of both of their ascendancy in MLS. I was wearing a red and black Metro Stars shirt that day and got a lot of,
You fit right in.
people didn't know what to do. People didn't know what to do, but it was a very exciting day. What I will take from that day, and this is by no means to disparage anyone in Atlanta, but the majority of the fan base didn't. The vast majority were going to this game. They were very excited. They didn't really know what to cheer. They didn't have songs yet. There was a song sheet that was handed out, but it wasn't. And there must have been 250 Red Bull fans that were there that night. And the chant that kind of propagated a lot was ATL. And, you do what you do. It's your first game out. This is what everyone, it's easy to chant. Everyone knows this, to which the Red Bull fans sang at them one song. You've only got one song. To which the Atlanta fans chanted back again, ATL. And the Red Bull fans were like, that's the song. That's the one song. But nevertheless.
Hey, we've got more songs than that now. And
agreed. And on day one, I guarantee you on day one of the Metro Stars, there was the same kind of evolution that has to take place within the fandom to really get that. And I mean, obviously, Atlanta's had a ton of success, some familiar names back. I want to start with Ronny Deila, though. Why is Ronny Deila the right guy at this particular time for Atlanta United?
I think he's won things. And look, this is a team that's in win now mode straight away. You go get a manager, and there's not a whole lot of them in the world who have won league championships in 3 different countries. There's just not. And that adaptability, I think, is really important. And the fact that one of those league championships is in Major League Soccer helps a ton. You're dealing with somebody who knows how to win, wants to win, has an identity, but is not rigid in implementing that identity. And I think that's the process that's been really interesting to watch in preseason, coming into a team and having it kind of build and morph under his feet, with adding some of the players like Miguel Almiron coming back, Latte Lot coming in, Mateusz Klich being here from very early days with Ronny Deila at the beginning of preseason, but meshing him into the group. It's still a work in progress, and it will be for a little while. But I think the fact that he is a winner and has trophies to his name is why he got the job and what he's expected to bring here in Atlanta.
Well, I would imagine, Atlanta can hope for, I guess, a pandemic to weaken one of Atlanta's Eastern Conference foes in the playoffs and then survive.
It was Philly, though, so it's okay, right?
That was a great Philly team, though.
I know. It pains me to admit that, but yes.
That's for Red Bull fans, that's a meteor game anyway, Philly, New York City. But so a 3-2 win against Montreal at home, and then a kind of a drab 2-0 loss at Charlotte on the fake grass. What's your first kind of glossy take on what you've seen so far from these guys?
Speed, a lot of it. This is a very fast team. This is a much more vertical team than we've seen in Atlanta in a little while. It's kind of similar to Tata Martino's early teams, to be honest. Wanting to get into the attacking half very quickly. And I think that's going to be the interesting thing that I'm kind of leaning into for this weekend. Is I'll remember very, very clearly the reaction to Gonzalo Pineda, and I think Amar Sejdic, when he was here, spoke to the media ahead of a Red Bulls game. And it was a game that Atlanta won at Mercedes-Benz Stadium against the Red Bulls. I think it was the first time for 3 points in that series. And they talked about, we want the pressure, we want the press to come, and we're going to play through it. We want to attract it. And it worked. And you had a team that could do that. Tata Martino tried to do that at times, and it didn't quite work. I think Ronny Deila is not going to attract the pressure. I think he's going to play direct to get into the attacking half and then try to set up shop a little bit more. So it's going to be a very different approach. I think you have the team to do it. Do you have the time with the group for everybody to be in sync? I don't know. Fullback has been an issue with injuries this season, so I don't think we've seen everything that we will see from Atlanta United in terms of those building blocks of the way they want to play. They haven't been very wide with converted center back on the left side in the last match in Luis Abram. Matt Edwards, who was the captain for the Twos at the beginning of last season, has had his first 2 starts in Major League Soccer this year, and honestly, defensively did a pretty good job against Wilfred Zaha in the first 45 in Charlotte, and was undone by a bouncing ball that he misjudged. He made a mistake, got punished for it. But neither one of those two, they can be good defensively. They didn't add to the attack, and they didn't stretch the game wide. Brooks Lennon and Pedro Amador are 2 guys who will do that, and both have been back in training this week. They've trained at various points over the past couple of weeks. Lennon coming back from a shoulder surgery, an injury suffered in the playoffs. Amador, muscle injury. Both were full participants yesterday in training, and I think both make the attack more dynamic and allow you to play in the opposition half far more often and for longer periods of time, because you'll have that full width of the pitch that this team just hasn't had so far under Ronnie Dyla.
It'll be interesting to see who Schwartz throws, especially given we're not expecting Cam Harper, who picked up a pretty ugly knock against Nashville last week, to play. It'll be interesting to see if it's a Dennis Youngor who comes and takes that role, or a Dylan Nealis. You're playing on the road, you're playing on turf. Maybe you're taking a little more defensive mind to go there. Also, how Felipe Carvalho is coming along. The Edelman-Stroud pairing in the center of New York's midfield is a lot more defensive minded, and Carvalho gives you another dimension so you can go through them forward. It's really been on the wings where that play has gone on. And then whether Omar Valencia will make his 3rd straight start. Raheem Edwards did get a little bit of play late in the game, the win against Nashville last week for New York. And I'm going to be honest, I know he was brought in as a depth player. Edwards obviously has played nearly half the teams in the league. I've yet to see it. He was a little shaky in his limited mop-up role. So if it is Valencia, that whoever's coming down, Atlanta's right, may have certainly some room to play. Obviously, a big crowd on opening day. When you've got Arthur Blank's bankroll, you obviously can make moves that not every team in MLS is prepared to make. What is Latte Loth? I mean, Almiron is a known quantity. I was talking to John about this yesterday. Yes, he's 31, but still pretty quick. What does Latte Loth bring that maybe we didn't see in the previous years playing you guys?
Just incredible speed up top, and I don't like to overhype an aspect of somebody's game too much, but in these first 2 games, Latte Lot has had multiple sequences, and I saw him in the last preseason game up close as well at the training ground. Every time I've seen him, there's been a situation where it's either a ball over the top that he's chasing, or a wayward cross, or a defensive pressure moment where I'm like, he can't get there. And he does. And he's that combination of speed over 40 yards and also quickness over 5 steps that is just lethal. He's the kind of guy that you can manufacture things with him if the game model isn't working, if the free-flowing soccer isn't working. You can just let him run, and he's going to make things happen. And he enjoys the defensive side of the game as well. He likes to press. He likes to try to win the ball back high up the field, as does Miguel Almiron. So you have this ability in Atlanta this season that is still coming together, where you can play and you have a lot of good players on the ball. You can be pretty direct, pretty vertical, play over the top and stretch teams with pace. But you also have a team that can defend high up the field. I don't think this is a team that's going to sit back and defend deep. I think they're always going to risk and take those chances higher up. Not as much as a Montreal, but maybe a little more along those lines of a team that wants the ball, but can be very disruptive with pressure high up the field and winning the ball back. Latte Lot's a huge part of that. I think the other element with Miguel Almiron that is different. You know, when he was here before, he was pretty much a 10 or a second forward. He at Newcastle played much more on the wing. Previous to that, his time in Argentina at Lanús, he was an 8. So he's this really interesting mix of a player that doesn't really fit a normal position kind of stereotype. And he's a right winger for this group in the starting lineup and on the graphic, but he's not staying wide on the right. He's coming inside. And Bartosz Slisz talked about this yesterday with the media. You know, Slisz is a 6. He's trying to get used to where Miggy is coming, where he wants the ball. Then what does that create on the other side? And this is where I think getting somebody like Brooks Lennon back when he's available, and I don't know if that's this week or not, that will stretch the field.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be much more difficult for a defensive group to decide, do I stay wide and try not to let Lennon put in crosses, or do I follow Almiron into the middle and try to keep up with him? The more discomfort you can create, the better. I think Atlanta's still getting used to Miguel Almiron in 2025. I think he's still getting used to the team, but I like the building blocks as it continues to come together.
I would imagine that Dyla and Atlanta will be very comfortable winning games 3-2 and 4-3, but Atlanta's conceded 4 goals in 2 games, and so we haven't talked about what's going on in the back. I mean, is Guzan still with it? Does he still have it at his advanced age? He's 40, right?
Yeah, 41. I don't have any issues with Brad. Honestly, I think the goals, when you go back and you look at them, one is off of a corner against Montreal. One is off of defensive miscommunication in front of Brad. The center backs got pulled out of position on Montreal's opening goal early in the second half. The goals from Charlotte, they didn't create much at all in that match, but 2 long balls that you don't handle well. I think Atlanta United will want to be better defensively by being further away from their goal. I think it's not going to be about the back line per se. It's about keeping the ball better in positions higher up the field and that counter pressure being effective. You know, I look back at the goals that they conceded in the second half performances, which haven't been as good as the first half performances. But for all of the good play in the first 45 in the first 2 games, you have 1 goal to show for it. They've got to put games away when they have the opportunity, when they have the momentum, when things are flowing, when chances are coming frequently. You got to score goals, because if you do, and I think the Charlotte game's a prime example, they didn't create much. Atlanta created twice as many chances. Atlanta had twice as many shot created actions. All those metrics, Atlanta was far better on paper. But the game didn't feel that way because of 2 goals and 2 goals in quick succession. Atlanta's got to produce when they have the opportunities to. And if they do, that defense looks a lot better if you have a 2-goal lead instead of chasing a game.
Really makes you wonder if that Route 1 play is something that Schwartz will adopt. They've done it in the past. It helped get them through the playoffs in 2024, shooting from distance as well. And so it'll be interesting to see. Again, if New York is pushed back into their own half, into their own third, with 5 in the back plus 2 6s, they can clog pretty well. Obviously, the key is going to be not to let either Latte Lath or Almiron run. Just kind of curious how the fan, before we let you go, Jason, thank you. Always great. The fan enthusiasm around this year, how has it been? I mean, a big crowd on opening day. You make a big signing, new coach. It feels like the team's been kind of adrift for the last few seasons. Has been. And I know fans. I know what happens when the new team smell wears off.
Yeah.
Plus, in year 8, right, this team has been very, very good, and they haven't been very, very good, and fans can switch off. So I'm just kind of curious what the enthusiasm level is right now.
It's really good right now. It's always interesting as something develops on the fly, and soccer culture in Atlanta has been doing that. You know, I've been around it since the Atlanta Ruckus days back in the mid 90s, playing at high school stadiums. So the bad times right now are really good compared to some of those days where the season ends and you don't know if the team's coming back the next year.
Right.
Not that long ago that was the reality. I always try to keep that in mind. And there was talk last week about it was disappointing that Charlotte had sold 45,000 tickets by Thursday. Like, that's a disappointment.
Right. And that's
a nice
insane.
disappointment.
That's insane. Right.
And I feel like what we've seen here in Atlanta is you have a very strong, healthy base. You have a very engaged base. Yeah, it ebbs and flows with the success of the team. And I think that's consistent, whatever sport we're talking about in this country.
Right.
Like, the Yankees don't draw as well when they're not winning as they do when they're winning. It's the nature of it. What I've liked and what I've been really happy about seeing, because you never know when it turns the good way again, how quick the feeling comes back.
Right.
Last year during the playoff run, it absolutely came back fast after it had been kind of frustrating in terms of wanted it to be noisier, wanted to see that support pick up as this team was fighting to get in. The Red Bulls game at the end of the regular season versus the game against Miami, absolute night and day in terms of excitement and buzz and atmosphere, and that carried through into this season. So you have all the news that's going to help, obviously, but this has been, in my opinion, a soccer culture that, is vocal. Yeah, at times, maybe overreacts to things as we see in a lot of places. That's nothing new. But they absolutely bounce back and rally around it when exciting things are happening. And I think this game this weekend, this will be the game of the weekend in MLS, in my opinion. I think it's two teams that are, along with Miami, the best teams in the East.
Yeah.
I think these are the three that are going to decide the East. Columbus is going to have something to say about it. Cincinnati is going to have something to say about it. I think Charlotte might have something to say about it. I do. But I think the three that we're talking about, Miami, Atlanta, Red Bulls, are the three best. And this Red Bulls team, in my opinion, is the best that I've seen. I like that they're more well-rounded. I like that, they can play. They can, like you said, they can sit back and defend when they have to do that. They can play when they have to have more possession, but they're still the Red Bulls, and you know what to expect. So I think we're back to where we were in 2017, 18, 19, where this match really presented a clash of styles, which generally creates a lot of excitement, and the neutrals will be fully entertained. We might be pulling our hair out and having heart attacks, but we will look back at it and say, man, these are two great teams, and I think they're going to go toe to toe on Saturday night.
It's only match day 3, but it does have a little bit of that big game feel for sure. The interesting thing you said, and then I'll let you go, Jason. It's year, like we said, it's the 8th season for you guys. That's enough time for kind of a new half generation to be engaged and to turn on, and it's enough time for fans to talk about the good old days, and it's enough time for a new generation to come and engage and take part. So it's exciting. I hope you have a good call on Saturday. Where can fans find you? And I know it's lots of places.
Lots of places. On Saturday, 92.9 The Game, the Odyssey app, if you want to listen there. On Apple TV, you can listen to the home team radio. If you want to see how crazy we're going and yelling and screaming and, you want to yell at us, that's completely fine. You can find us there. It's always fun to have those interactions. Soccer Down Here is our platform where we cover Atlanta United 2. We'll have a radio call of the twos match between these two teams on Friday night from Kennesaw. Excited for that. First game of the season for both.
Right.
We cover local high school soccer. We were in Dalton yesterday, up in Northwest Georgia, one of the hotbeds of soccer in the entire state, about an hour and a half away from Atlanta.
That's where the Fugees are, right?
Fugees are in Clarkston, which is just to the east. Dalton is a heavy Latino community, great high school soccer. Atlanta United built a mini pitch up there and opened it yesterday in the community, which was very cool to get to see. So that's at Soccer Down Here on your social media platforms on YouTube. And we try to cover every aspect of what's happening down here. And it's a lot right now.
No, it's great to see. And as an OG to the notion, of course, and I'm sure you pinch yourself every day, the idea that this would work there still must be unreal. But
I had that belief. I thought it might take longer than it did. I'm really thankful that it happened as quick as it did. And now a World Cup has come into town, and it's going to be even crazier going forward.
That's awesome, my man. Jason Longshore, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, sir. We've got more Seeing Red with your emails coming up after this short break. Keep it here. We're at the New York Soccer Roundup. Red Bulls ready to go down to Atlanta. Hotlanta. They don't like it when you say Hotlanta. They don't like it at all. You know, this game is happening in week 3, match day 3. And like, for me, this is kind of like a big game. And I don't know why this isn't happening after the teams have kind of a little more play under their belt. It just seems too soon. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, of course we have to waste one of our AC games in the month of March. So that's gonna suck when we have to play outside in 100-degree weather,
right,
coming up this summer. So whoever made the schedule, appreciate that.
You can write us anytime at seeingredny@gmail.com. We have a full email bag. That's 5 emails for you this week. And the first is from longtime listener and fan of the show, Seth Hewling, who correctly notes that in 30 seasons of Metro and Red Bulls football, 30 different players have scored the first goal of the season. Yeah. That's crazy.
Stats, man.
Stats. For your pub Red Bulls trivia. Here's Seth Hewling, who says 30 seasons, 30 different goal scorers. Vegas, eat your heart out. A 2-0 beatdown is about as good a home opener as one can hope for. And if it's a sign of things to come, then I'm absolutely here for it. But it is a harbinger, or is Nashville just straight up bad? I'm not suggesting they are. I'm just asking the question. A goal from a forward and a goal from the DP10 is what one would expect from a quality side on any given day. And maybe the Metro in 2025 can be categorized as just that, but maybe they're just playing an unworthy opponent. Who knows? What do you think? Got to say, I'm a little disappointed that Chupo hasn't found the back of the net. His positioning and passing was excellent, but if he can't finish, then in a way, we're right back to where we started. Fingers crossed for Morgan and Harper. Love to the Goldstein family. Keep up the good work. That's Seth. Were the Red Bulls just good, or was Nashville just bad, or a little of both?
I think that's just an early season matchup for you. One team came to play and the other didn't. I think that's kind of the easy breakdown, you can say. I think Red Bull, from the opening kickoff, looked like they were going to win that game. And to be fair, Nashville is dealing with some injuries, so I could see them, gathering it up. Mid-season they make a push for another playoff spot. But I think that's just what it was. Game 2 of the season, not everybody's fully in form. And some people didn't show up for Nashville. Like I said, Walker Zimmerman was probably one of their worst players. So you don't expect to see that much this year. So we'll see. Maybe they are just bad, and we just got an early sight of it.
But nevertheless, I think a goal by a forward and a goal by Forsberg, I mean, that's phenomenal. Phenomenal to see. You've got the next one, sir. Thank you, Seth.
Yes, we have Nick Guarino. Hey, Mark and Dan. I added the Dan part.
Yeah, it's all good, man.
So it was great to see a convincing win over Nashville. The only downside was seeing that Lewis Morgan was injured late in the week and leading up to the match, and Cam Harper going down with a knee injury. What seems like a potentially lengthy time off the pitch. Yeah, it looks like Cam might be out for a while. Losing those 2 players really hurts. I was highly encouraged by the 1-game sample size of Sofa. I think he brings pace and tenacity up front. I'm wondering if you think Sandro will maybe shift to a more 4-4-2 in the absence of Harper and start Dylan Nealis as a more traditional right back, or perhaps keep the shape and give Gengar more run as a wing back. It will be interesting to see how all of these early season injuries are navigated. Let's just hope for no more. Nick.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that during our first segment. We got into just that, right?
Yep.
Are the Red Bulls going to be able to, keep their 5-man backline against the speed of Latte Lath and Miguel Almiron, or do they want to put a Yengar on and let him fly during the few chances that New York will probably have? We heard Jason Longshore say how comfortable Atlanta is in the attacking third, and it may be just a question of stepping in, breaking something up, and then sending the wings flying up the field with a hope to catch, Atlanta's depleted defense snapping. So I think the answer is yes. That is a very good question.
Yeah.
Anything to add there, sir?
Yeah, I think, that was one of the good things that they did this offseason was add depth in defense. Obviously they brought in a Tim Parker who's playing, as the fourth center back. And, we know what Tim Parker could bring to the game. And then we see what they did at left back, bringing in 3 new defenders, and then they already had the depth on the right side. So I think, losing a guy like Cameron Harper, sucks in the short run. But I think when you can put a Dylan Nealis at right back, or Dennis Gengar, a young promising player at right wing back, I think, that's what the depth is there for. And maybe we want depth in more different places, like up top at the striker position. But, maybe Mohamed Sofo breaks out this year and he's the next, young superstar for this team. So, balance is key for this Red Bull team. And, whoever steps up, it's next man up. So,
there you go.
Sofo stepping up, and whoever's next at the right wing back position, that's for them to take their advantage. Take their opportunity.
There you go. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Nick, for that email. Our old friend, the long dead labor leader, Jimmy Hoffa, who writes, "Hey, Mark and Dan, I hope you're doing well. With the commencing of a new season, there is always a slew of new feelings. To begin with, I was greatly touched by the tribute to Joe at the arena. I don't wish to say too much more about it because it does indeed sadden me greatly. And we haven't talked about it on the show, but huge, infinite props to the Red Bulls comms team and the Red Bulls game presentation team for including an on-screen moment of silence for Joe Goldstein. I mean, no words, just amazing.
He was in the press box with us as well, by the way. I was sitting next to him, so that was a good touch as well. So, prayers to him and to his family.
And to the ESC, who had an RIP Joe banner hanging off of their perch. And for those of you who may not be aware, we're going to get that banner to Joe's family so they can have that. But unreal. We'll move on to Jimmy's email. I did not choose to send an email last week because I didn't want to be overreactive. I could sense some trust from the team that probably deserved a draw but gave up a crappy goal. Overall, this team looks tactically sound and comfortable in a way I haven't seen in a while. The back three looks solid. The midfield and forwards are connecting on runs of play that are not purely vertical passes. Forsberg looks comfortable, and I think someone with the technique of Choupo-Moting helps. Even if he didn't score, Choupo-Moting was involved. I already see rumblings online of complaints he hasn't scored yet. Ignore these people. Somehow we are already in an injury crisis, which is concerning. But overall, it seems like we've found balance between young effort RB2 guys like Cam Harper and Sofo. I don't know, was Harper was not an RB2 guy, and veteran players. Get us Timo Werner, and we're winning the cup. Yours in the New Jersey, New York Metro, your favorite labor leader, Jimmy Hoffa. Choupo was very active all night.
Yes.
Certainly looked more comfortable than he did in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I think, a couple of the new guys look really good. Choupo's doing everything but scoring, and, those goals will eventually come. Taking a shot with his left foot, curling outward and hitting the post. I think, unlucky. I think he might take that with his right foot in the future, and it goes in the corner. They still got a goal off of it, and his passing and his hold-up play was excellent. And his technical ability, even not being the fastest guy still, he looked the part, and he looked like a difference maker, and that's the biggest thing Red Bull is looking for up top. And I want to shout out Alexander Hack, because obviously there was concerns from me coming out of preseason from that last game that teams could just kick the ball over the top of the defense, and Red Bull couldn't do anything. But Alexander Hack has looked really comfortable at that left center back position. Interceptions, passing. I mean, he's been, superb so far for me. Other than the one goal that,
Right.
went over him in Cincinnati, everything's been picture perfect so far. So I think Sandro likes what he's seen so far out of those two, and more to come.
Yeah, agreed 100%. Thank you, Jimmy, for your note. Dan has the next email. That's Jeremiah Dempster. Nope, sorry, that's Jordan Glass. Glass.
Jordan Glass. Morning, guys. Great way to kick off the season at home. Can't get any better.
Nope.
Losing the first game of the season is always tough, and I agree that those thinking the season is over is too much. Again, like the last email said, ignore those people. Now I'm going to go in the opposite direction. The first thing I notice is that the team seems to be very comfortable with possession of the ball, but also still able to press as dictated by Red Bull Soccer. This is great to see. The game against Nashville was one of the best I've seen under Schwartz, and I'm putting out hot take out there. If, a very big if, this team can stay healthy and they're able to bring in a talent like Timo Werner. Everybody likes Timo Werner. Apparently.
They do.
I'm saying that they will make it back to MLS Cup and finally bring home some hardware. A bold thing to say after 2 games, but that's why it's a hot take. Do I really think Werner is coming to MLS? No, but a guy can hope. Bull of the week has to be Forsberg. What a goal. Honorable mention to Sofo, and hope he continues to develop. As always, New York is red.
Yeah, I mean, that's 2 guys in a row who are calling for a cup victory after New York signs Timo Werner, and apparently who's not getting picked up by Spurs. So, I mean, listen,
maybe,
yeah. I don't know if New York is going to spend $22.3 million to bring Timo Werner to New York, but here's a guy who clearly is not getting it done at that level, and I mean, Mohamed Sofo needs someone to push him in practice. So you bring in a Timo Werner for that. All right, last email, and thank you, Jordan. Yes. Jeremiah Dempster, as I said earlier, Mark and crew, is great to be back in the stadium this weekend, despite spending a considerable chunk of the match considering suggesting a group cuddle with my nearby fellow season ticket holders to keep the frostbite at bay. Kudos to everyone who turned out, and to the team who used the occasion to put the freeze on Nashville. We see what you did there. There was a lot to like in this game, including multiple performances and how Sandro tweaked the tactics from Cincinnati. One thing that caught my eye, not in a good way, was the performance of Peter Stroud. Edelman was very good, his usual steady stealth, but Stroud struggled all night. I thought when Carvalho entered the game in that area, the field got noticeably better. It got me thinking about the center midfield core of the team. We've talked about attacking reinforcements on repeat for years, but I'm a little more than anxious about the middle of the park in the early stage. And here he outlines the players. Stroud, 22 years old with 41 caps. Edelman, 21 years old with 72. Ronald Donkor is coming back from injury, 20 years old with 20 appearances. He already has 20 appearances?
Yeah.
Wow. There's Carvalho, 28 years old with 10 appearances. Wiki Carmona, 22 years old and 70 appearances. I don't love that as the full, Jeremiah says, I don't love this, the full crew to get us through the year. Edelman and Carvalho is a good first 11 pair, but Stroud has a little in the bank from past performances for me to think he can be better, but we still feel underpowered and underprepared in a key area of the field. We need that stable center to free Forsberg to be allowed to read and find the game and lock down the middle to facilitate the press. What do you think? Am I missing something? Being reactionary, especially this early in the season? Am I underselling our guys? That's Jeremiah Dempster with a great note. Dan, what do you think? Are you concerned about this 5-man core that right now is like 3.5 men?
Yeah, I think, the only downside of bringing in a guy like Felipe Carvalho is he's probably not going to come back in the summer. Me personally, I don't think they would exercise this buy option, which is reportedly around $4 million. I just don't think me personally, I don't think they would exercise that. So when he leaves, you're going to have another hole that you need to fill that, was void when Frankie Amaya got sold. So I think that's just the missing piece in the starting 11 is not knowing who you want to be a full-time starter next to Daniel Edelman, because obviously we saw Ronald Donkard do, have a
Pretty
good
well.
job pretty well last year. But he's still only 20. He still needs to grow into his own, body, his own, play on the field and figure out who he is as a player.
Yeah.
And, Stroud as well, I think, is more of a backup at this point, but a backup to Daniel Edelman in his role. I think, what Stroud does fits what Edelman does if he's the backup and he has to come on for Edelman late in the game. But yeah, I think he's right that might be a concern going into later in the year. But for now, that's what they're gonna have to go run out each and every week is Peter Stroud and Daniel Edelman, and that kind of goes to the point that they can run 2 6s and it frees up Emil Forsberg a bit more, knowing that you have 2 guys that are pretty good defenders in themselves.
Yeah, it'll be, for when Peter Stroud was blowing it last year before he hurt himself, he wasn't playing as a 6. He was playing on the wing.
Yeah.
And so it will definitely be interesting to see how his game evolves when New York has pieces ahead of him at every other position, where it's like, Pete, you want to play? This is where you got to play, right?
Yeah.
So definitely interesting, and something to watch. I would, given the quality that Caravaggio's shown, I mean, I think when we get to June and his loan is up, it'll be interesting to see where New York is on the table and how the first half of the season's gone. And I think then the team will make the decision, like, do we really need to take a chance on this guy at 28 years old, or are we just going to let the kids play or bring someone else in? But again, the team has made upgrades, as you said, and depth play in a number of other positions. The one thing that I haven't said, and thank you very much, Jeremiah, for your email, and for all the emails tonight. I did not particularly loved what I saw out of Raheem Edwards in a very short role.
Yeah.
20 minutes he played. And yes, the game is over. And yes, the Red Bulls aren't pressing. But I mean, I saw him put a leg up to try and stop a player. I saw him put a leg up to try and stop a pass. I saw him flip a ball out of bounds. I was not impressed by what I saw at all. And so for me, Valencia has to stay healthy until Morales is ready to go. And we'll find out this week when that's the case. But it was terrifying. So yeah, I don't know what you thought there.
Yeah, I think he looks a bit slow at this point to be a left wing back, especially next to Alexander Hack, who's already, not the fastest guy. And it kind of looked like he was kind of playing like he never played left back before. And it was kind of, eye-opening, as you said. I remember went to slide in, just got jumped over, and
oh my Lord,
he's still on the ground out of bounds trying to get up, and he's jogging back into play when they're attacking the 18-yard box. And it was like, oh, okay. So
oh no,
they need Morales back as soon as possible. So yeah,
sure.
I think that's why I also said Omar Valencia was going to be the starter heading into the season, is because he brings that pace, and he brings that, he gets stuck in maybe a bit too much with that yellow card that he picked up last game, but I think he brings what they need on that left side.
Cam Harper played in his 101st all-time all-comps appearances for the Red Bulls. The next player to make that mark will be Dylan Nealis, who's currently at 96. And if we see Tim Parker play, he's at 95. keep that in mind. Some stats for you. We've come to an end of a fantastic episode of Seeing Red. Thank you, Dan, for taking part. This way. He's over there. Over there. Thank you, Dan. Thank you to Zach Feldman for stats as always. And thank you to Jason Longshore, who I'm privileged to know. He's a fantastic guy. Thank you for watching episode 603 of Seeing Red. We will be back next week to review what happens in Atlanta and preview Orlando coming into Red Sports Illustrated Stadium.
Saved
dollar in the jar. Dan, once again, calls Saturday's match a.
What did I say? I said 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw. You want to tell the folks where to find you?
Yeah, you can find me at areasportsnetwork.com for all my written content and, social media as well. You can look up my name and you'll probably find me. So that's fine.
Thank you as always. For all of us at Seeing Red, to all of you, have a great night. Let's go Red Bulls. Good night.
Peace.